Okay, great. All right, well, welcome everyone. Welcome to meditation. And right after Thanksgiving, and we're definitely be talking about gratitude in a much bigger way because we're going to be talking about Quantum Revelations, a book by Paul Levy. And Ron and I were just saying that book is so full of everything that just to spend an hour and a half on it is it's ridiculous, really. But we're going to try. We're going to try to see if we can do that. So I'd like to just start off with, let me see if I have it here. Just something interesting from the book. Let me see if I can get it on here. Oh boy. Well, I thought I had it queued up, I'm sorry. It's Thanksgiving, it's all the turkey. It's the turkey, that's why. It's all the turkey's fault. Okay, let me just, oh, okay, here we go. Okay. So I love the way Paul Levy starts this particular section about quantum physics as a spiritual path. Okay, so I just want to read that to just set a tone, and Ron is going to take over, and he's going to take us into quantum magic. Okay, so this is Paul Levy. I wonder if I'm becoming addicted. I can't seem to get enough of quantum physics. It has captured and simultaneously liberated my imagination beyond belief. My appetite for what it is revealing feels insatiable. The more I study it, the more I feel as if I'm mutating, metamorphosizing, becoming quantum physicized into a higher state of coherence in my very soul. Words fail me when I try to describe the realm of pure and utter magic that is quantum theory. Unlike a typical addiction where an energy gets drained, the more that I invest my attention in the world of quantum physics, the more creative energy makes itself available to me. I feel convinced that what it is revealing to us is of crucial importance for the future of humanity. But of course, I might be dreaming. Quantum physics becomes a doorway beyond both physics and physical dimensions into the realms of metaphysics. So I thought I would read that and just say it's that word metaphysics. It's really good to hear it because I was talking to Richard, who's on this call with us there. That's not Victoria Friedman, that's Richard Weiss over there. And we were talking about that when we meet people and you say you're interested in metaphysics, it could be bending spoons, you know? And so it's wonderful because he takes it back to the Greek, and it's just such a great word, metaphysics, to explain so much. I know that word needs to be reinvented here and re-recognized. So I'd like to turn it over to Ron now, and maybe you can.
Maybe we can just stay on that for a minute. I wonder if I'm just curious, how many people have read the book? I know Craig has, Harvey hasn't. Eleanor, have you read the book?
No, but I would love to.
Yeah, I mean, I would highly, highly recommend it. And let me begin by saying that I'm like Paul Levy. I'm so excited by quantum physics and what it suggests, and the thinking that it opens up is extraordinary. And it really has the ability to change us. Now, I've been so involved in the book, and there's so many interesting parts of it that you'll have to excuse me if I fall all over myself trying to get too many things in at the same time. So I'll try to keep it simple. But what I will say about what Victoria just said is that quantum physics is truly metaphysics. In other words, it's beyond the old physics. It's something that revolutionizes the old physics. So it's beyond the old physics. It is metaphysical. And so it's incredible. What we'd like to do, maybe just a very brief few words by Jean Houston. If any of you, do you know Jean Houston? She is one of the foremost founder and prominent figure in the humanist movement, human evolution movement. And she read this book. I actually heard her speaking recently, and I could tell how much the book influenced her from the way she was talking. It was in there. But she failed, just from the back of the book, it said, this is one of the most important books that I have ever read, which is a huge, huge statement. So I'm going to read one or two statements from the book, and I want your input on it. See what you, let me just check something here. No. And I want your input on how you hear it and what it means to you. If you were to read this, come across it, what really is it saying to you? Okay. Victoria, do you have the email that I sent to you with all the topics on it, with the statements on it? Okay.
Have to find it, Ron. Sorry. Okay, here it is.
If you could just put it on for a second. Or you put it on the screen?
Well, I'd have to.
All right, let me just. I'll read it directly. All right, so excuse me for looking down. I'm reading. This is from the foreword by Jean Houston. Very briefly, this is one of the most fascinating, evocative, and important books that I've ever read. Quantum physics is the name of the game, and pursuing its mysteries prepares one to become a game changer in both one's life, one's understanding of reality, and how one agrees to participate in the biocosmic field that is intrinsic to our nature. So what is interesting about her first paragraph in the foreword is that it relates immediately what we're going to talk about. It relates immediately to our everyday life. In other words, she's saying that this information will actually change us in the way we live from moment to moment in our everyday experience. So this is not just theoretical physics we're talking about. We're talking about a physics that crosses over into metaphysics, that crosses over into Eastern spirituality completely, and has the ability to change our life. All right, Victoria, can you put that up, or?
I really can't, Ron. I didn't have that. I didn't put it on that.
The email that you got?
I don't think that's in there.
All right, let me see. Give me 1 minute to see if I can put it up. That's not.
Well, I don't think you can put it up. I'd have to make you a co-host. Why don't you just read it to us? I think it'll be fine.
Okay. All right. Well, let me go back again. And start. All right. I will be looking down. I need some light, so excuse me. And I'd like to hear what you think about this, from your experience, from your conceptual things. He's summarizing here the key points in the first part of the book. We live in a participatory universe. The observer affects what is observed by the mere act of observing. We live in a participatory universe. And so what does that mean to us, that we live, how do you hear that? A participatory universe. What is our relationship to the universe? Are we totally separate from it?
No.
Not, how do we participate in it? And if you'd like to respond, you can just raise your hand so I can see it in front of the screen, or put up the hand signal if you are sophisticated in Zoom technology. So we live in a participatory universe. How do we feel that? Do we feel that's true? What does that mean to us? Eleanor.
Yeah, I was very impressed, and I'm not a scientist now, and especially I don't know the math of quantum physics at all. However, the idea is that when you break down everything, even our atoms, we are just energy, and energy connects. So there isn't anymore a me and it, whatever I think, defined. So overcome definitions, that dichotomy, I and it. And what that took me there, over 50 years ago, 60 years ago, when I studied still in undergraduate school philosophy there, it was Immanuel Kant who said, we cannot know how things are in themselves, only how they appear to us. And therefore we need concept or an image, but that's an it then. That isn't the essence anymore. And that fascinated me. So first, walking in the park and looking at the trees, where the tree isn't just the shape and the colors, there is an essence there, but I can't really know it. So that's when I then on my own continued, well, then I cannot know myself either. And I started to think, who am I? And all my definitions, I realized that's really not the essence. That's just the concept or an image of me. And ever since I'm in that, and for me now it's very interesting to move into non-duality, not, subject-object dichotomy. So that's where I am in a very musing way, and knowing the moment I define it, I'm really losing it. It is just a feeling experience. And when I did study a Kant there, and then I was thinking, well, can I actually know myself without defining myself? And there were these little aha kind of moments. But then the moment when I say, now I got it, I make it an it again, I make it an object, a definition again. Now I spoke enough, but that's where I am.
Thank you. Thank you. That's quite a journey you've taken. I think many of us are. So, Richard, did I see your hand up?
Well, Harvey has his hand up.
Harvey, okay, let me just put him in the screen. Yes,
So
Harvey, yes, please.
yeah. Can you hear me? First
I can hear you fine.
Oh, good. Okay, good. So I was involved at the United Nations with a group that once a month did a full moon meditation in the Dag Hammarskjöld room. If you've ever been in that meditation room, it's a fantastic place. And just a few weeks before one of these meditations, I got involved with the Global Coherence Initiative. I don't know if you're familiar with the heart math.
Mhm.
And so we were practicing appreciation. And so I'm in the room and we're supposed to be meditating on peace, but I decided to meditate on appreciation instead. And the word popped into my head as the word appreciate. And as I was seeing this word, I recognized that peace is in appreciate.
Yeah.
I rushed home to find out what the rest of it was. And it turns out that another way of what's the word that they use? An anagram for appreciate is peace part one. If you use the I as a Roman. So peace part one became something really fascinating to me. I said, well, peace part one, what's part two then?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I'm reading a book by Greg Braden, and he was talking about Robert Wheeler and his concept about participation.
Yeah, John Wheeler. Yeah.
Part one is, and then the rest of it, participate. And from that point on, I recognized that all I need to do in life is appreciate and participate.
It's a good start. It's a good start. Participate. Yeah.
And moving it from a concept to an embodiment is the next step. And the work that I've been doing since then has really made it possible for that to be embodied in me. And you can't take a concept away then when it's embodied.
When it's embodied. Yeah. Well,
Yes.
Thank you, Harvey.
Mhm.
Victoria.
Yeah. Thank you for those last two contributions. They kind of sum everything up. Beautiful. It's so beautiful. Yes, Ron is the physicist, Columbia Physics. I'm an artist, and of course, when I was reading, well, I mean, there's no reading quantum revelations. It's just sort of reading little bits and moving along. When I was reading it, the non-duality part of it really spoke to me much more than I would imagine the physics. Like there's something called the double slit experiment, which Ron has explained to me many times and I don't get it. So, but when I read Paul Levy, it's like I'm reading Nisargadatta, I'm reading Ramana Maharshi, I'm reading Rupert Spira, I'm reading all these people just in a different flavor, a really different kind of tonality. And this object-subject, the object-subject situation, the object, this body, I was saying, well, I'm looking at an object, I'm looking at the monitor, I'm looking at the light, and I'm looking at the body, it's an object, and where is that subject? That who am I is such an incredible inquiry that just goes on and on and on and on, that's sort of like the quantum revelation for me. So I thank you for those contributions. I got a lot from them.
Great. And yes, Richard.
I'm going to have to ask you to repeat the question again because I got lost in all the answers.
You get good answers, they take you on a trip.
Yes, indeed.
A big trip. I'm going to read it directly. We live in a participatory universe. The observer affects what is observed by the mere act of observing. So let's stay on this idea of a participatory universe. What does that mean to you? I mean, how do you hear that? Because I'll tell you right now, one of the things that quantum physics will do is destroy the whole idea of an independent, separate entity, a subject. It will bring us into a sense of such intimate participation with creation itself,
Yes.
the creation of reality. Richard.
Yeah, because we're told that nothing that has been discovered on any other planet or has been observed on any other planet isn't here on Earth. And we as a physical body, we're changing our physical body every year or every 7 years. I mean, I've heard both. But if that is the case, then we are participating in the whole universe. But we are the whole universe from that point of view. The only thing that then needs to be done is to understand what it is that we're trying to do. Because if we are spiritual beings as well as physical beings, C.S. Lewis described us as being amphibians, then
In that sense, yeah.
we are really, then our intention or our responsibility would be to try to spiritualize those parts of us that have been loaned to us for this period of time.
Yeah, in the sense, as you're saying, of participation in the entire movement, the evolution of the entire universe at one time, that we cannot be separate from it.
Yeah.
Craig.
Well, I think, if I've heard, it's not like I haven't heard this idea, if you want to call it an idea or position before, but to think how radical it was when it was first being introduced. And I think that somewhere in the 20s, right? I think initially is when the idea was introduced. And it's still how radical it is when we consider the normal process of the way, I'll say myself, the way I look at the world. It's basically saying that the way I'm looking at the world is completely habitually wrong. That it's always, the way I'm looking at it is typically the perspective is there's me, there's that, there's these things, and they exist outside, and I have no real relationship to them unless I physically engage with them. And that actually turns that completely upside down.
Absolutely does. Really does. Take that idea. I just want to point out that we have a new member, by the way, attending. And could you unmute yourself and tell us who you are? I think you're muted. You're muted. Can you unmute yourself? He's on his iPhone. Where's the mute button on the iPhone? Do we know?
Am I unmuted now?
Yes, you are. Terrific.
Oh, thank you.
And what is your name?
It's good to be here.
Say that again.
Bob. That's Bob.
Oh,
Hi,
that's
Barb.
Bob, I didn't recognize you.
What?
No, there was this image in my lower right-hand corner of the screen. Great to have you, Bob.
Yeah, so good, so good. Okay.
Okay.
Great.
Just to give a little bit of meat to this idea of a participatory universe, just to point out that people who are so-called evolutionary leaders are trying very hard to find out at this stage of what appears to be a crisis in society and humanity on many levels, are trying to answer the question, what is the most effective way of participating to change the course of evolution, of the way things are moving? How do we do it? We just participated in a conference and they asked us, okay, we all agree that there is a desperate need for upgrading consciousness in humanity. What is the best way in which you would do it? And so I think this question of participation is a very big issue on a practical level, but quantum physics tells us that we are already participating on levels that we even cannot imagine. Yes, if you want to contribute, Bob, I may have missed you. Just raise your hand like this and I will call on you.
Ron, can I just come in for 1 minute? Just to say, since as this group here, to just say that we can come in multiple times, makes for a conversation that flows and is interesting. So if everybody would not, don't make like 3 points, make 1 point, because you can come back and make another point. And that's a way of opening up a field and creating space. So keep your contribution short and just have them flowing. And you can speak more than once. You can just keep coming back in conversation.
Great. Thank you, Victoria. And again, raise your hand and we'll recognize you. Anne-Marie.
when I think of this quantum magic, and as Craig was saying, a change in reality, I'm thinking where we typically hang out is in our head. And we think that we can think everything through. And I think what this topic is asking us to do is to be led more by something other than our head. And I have one example is that just before this call, I just took a second and said, what could help me with this call? And I didn't use my head, and something drew me upstairs to my bedroom library, and I grabbed this book, Defying Gravity,
How beautiful.
by Carolyn Miss. And I thought, wow, this is really along the same lines of energy work rather than intellectual thinking work. Right.
Thank you, Anne Marie. And I think the previous comment that was made about energy, I think Eleanor made the comment about energy, that it's not possible to be isolated as an energy field. Energy fields by their very nature interact. So it's very interesting that you found that. All right, let me move on to another statement about quantum physics. These are all mind bogglers, one after another, and they're supposed to boggle the mind. All right, this one is wild. One act of observation not only changes the present state of the universe, it reaches backwards in time and changes what we can say about the past. Let me read that again because it's really hard to take this one in. The act of observation, and here I'll just expand this, the act of interacting with some aspect of reality. The very fact of interacting with it, it could be in an experiment, it could be in living our lives and making a decision to go one way. The act of observation not only changes the present state of the universe, it reaches backwards in time and changes what we can say about the past. I mean, to hear that, Harvey.
Yeah, I mean, the thing for me anyway is that internalizing that reality makes regrets impossible. That your life flows in a direction that you created, that you are part of, and that whatever happened was a learning experience and was something that brought you to the next level of your life. And I was thinking about what Craig was saying about 1910. The world of physics thought that they had it all worked out. We were living in a mechanical universe. It was all preset, and then some very fascinating things happened, like Röntgen discovering X-rays, the double slit experiments, and radioactivity with the Curies, and everything was blown up at that point. And I'm waiting for the next step because I think there's more even to come.
I think that's built in, that's guaranteed. But I mean, listening to this statement, to hear that nothing is fixed, nothing is rigid. In an act in the moment, we not only change the present moment, the future, but we also reconfigure the past so that we exist in a new reality relative to the thing that we thought could not be changed. We affect the reality backwards and forwards. Bob. Unmute, Bob.
Unmute.
There,
There we, good, now you can hear me. I'm having a lot, I'm definitely technically challenged, so bear with me, please.
Sure.
I love this reading because I think that when you view anything, you basically disrupt the particle arrangement of memory. And so that memory, we have the ability to, through magic or through, for me, through Buddhism, to recreate the past as well as the present, as well as the future, because we believe that nothing is real, everything is imputed. And so we can create our reality. And in so doing, I think we affect the whole, because I believe that all these particles are interrelated, interdependent, and that in some way contributes to the consciousness, the universal consciousness of all. So it is a very interesting experiment in Buddhism, especially in the lineage that I practice. It really results in, I should make the short, that was the point, make a short statement. I've made my short statement, thank you.
Well, you're getting onto something interesting.
I was getting into something, but I don't know that this is the place or time to do that.
Find another way of saying it. We want to hear it. I want to hear Craig and then Victoria.
I mean, this is like, I mean, it's a pretty wild idea when you think about it, that if we can really observe something fully without separation from actually, then we're actually able to time travel. You know, I know apparently time travel theoretically is possible. They've worked out the theory or the calculations for it, but this is actually saying what spirituality or mystics and sages have been saying for thousands of years. It's now beginning to prove in a physical way how this can actually happen, that the act of actually not being separate from something, we can see everything, and that can actually give us the ability has the ability to change the past or influence the past and the future.
Yeah, indeed. It's a miraculous concept, especially when you realize they're telling us there is no past and future. There's the present moment. So what we're really doing is interacting with the present moment.
Right.
Always. Anyway, Victoria.
Well, yes, first of all, thank you, Bob. That rarely happens. The biggest meetings online, I can tell you, Barbara Marx Hubbard and the greatest luminaries. Anyway, I have a lot of stories to tell you about that, because see, that was an observer. The observer was watching what was happening here, and the observer said, okay, and it lifts the meeting, by the way. It lifts the meeting because it's awareness. And I was going to say that the subject-object reality also, we say, it's just, for me, when I began to think about that, when I heard that observing something, and even with my granddaughter, observing something, I am one with that result. I am part of that result. But then it's, who am I as part of that result? Because otherwise it's an object-object. We might as well have an object-object relationship. So who is the subject? So when speaking about the past, if we go to the past, which I believe certain therapies just go to the past in the object-object relationship. So you go back and you relive the past as an object-object, and the result, I mean, you can start forgiveness, you can just work on it, you can stop regret. You can, I mean, it just goes on and on. I mean, it just the drama. But to go back to a past relationship from subject to subject, in other words, to go back and see it in consciousness, to see not what it appeared to be, not what happened, even though it happened in the drama, but to see it from the screen, from the screen, not the drama. That is an incredible thing. That makes it, of course, it doesn't change us because there's nothing that we need to change, but it brings forth what is real. It brings forth that we are now dealing with an awareness that is always present, that is taking everything in directly. And so I think that, when that whole thing came up about, there's object, subject, object, and that we will, but in an experiment, the person who's looking at the experiment affects the experiment. But who is looking at the experiment? Who's that?
Terrific. Yeah. Richard.
Yeah,
Thank
but see, the teaching of the spirituality, that time is circular, that it may be circular, but it doesn't necessarily mean that in terms of quality, it doesn't go up or down. But that depends on how you are taking things in. So to take in a moment consciously, in terms of, say, mindfulness or self-remembering, whatever you want to call it, that is what creates that moment as a reality and changes the other, your memory of the past or your development in the future, because now it has something to go on. You've changed your inner spiritual settings in relation to that particular thing. It's going to come round again, but it'll come round in a different way, and we'll be able to accept it in a different way.
Yeah. The introduction of consciousness into the present moment is really what we're talking about. We're talking really about consciousness relating to consciousness.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. Let me get Barbara and then Bob.
Well, I'm so glad we're talking about consciousness, because as everyone was speaking, I was trying to see, so what's in the way? And I've been doing an experiment with walking meditation and how it, let me just say it. So I'm walking the other day and I look down and I see a pile of leaves, all different shapes, colors, and sizes. That's what they appear in front of me. And all of a sudden, of another veil of this story life that we live in is moved. And I go, we're the pile of leaves. Like I'm the leaf is me. And it starts to pop things open for me. So it takes away all the stories of I'm Barbara by myself. I'm not Barbara by myself. I look at the leaves, I walk outside, I am the universe. I can't say I'm in the universe, but I can say I am the universe. And that's a consideration that starts with a veil removed. It's a porthole, like it's a little pinhole. I'm listening to everyone. You're wonderful. You're absolutely wonderful. But that was a pinhole for me of opening a consideration. I go through life, and yes, I'm one with the universe, but to actually experience it in a walking meditation and know that I and you are one, it's a beginning. It's a wonderful beginning. And I really appreciate everything everybody's been saying. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it sounds great. And
thank you, Barbara. That was beautiful and very revealing. I have this fellow that I'm interested in, as his name is Eckhart Tolle, and he wrote a book called The Power of Now. And in it, he makes a very interesting statement. He says, consciousness becoming aware of consciousness, consciousness becoming aware of consciousness. And what that really leads to is the conclusion that there's no self. there's no self. All there is consciousness. And so when we use that portal, when we get to that place where we no longer are too concerned about the story, or we drop the story, then we can make up whatever story we want. And the joy, the magic, you know, as Paul Levy would say, the magic is in the creation, that the consciousness is a creative mechanism. It's a creative tool that creates reality. And so he is such, I think this guy, Levy, is just incredible. And, you know, his book is amazing, that he points to the fact that we don't want to grasp onto anything as being true. In my Tantra Buddhism that I practice, nothing exists. Everything is an imputation. Everything is a dream. Everything is a conceptual projection, and that it becomes meaningless in one sense, but also they use the word in Buddhism called Gaia. And Gaia is the playfulness of creation, the playfulness of creating. And so I'm so happy to be with this group and to speak to fellow travelers on this spiritual path that we are in. It is really a privilege. Thank you.
Thank you. Great to have you. Eleanor. You're muted. Eleanor, you have to unmute.
Yeah, unmute.
Now you can hear me?
There you go.
Yes. Okay. I mean, I'm so happy about. Can you hear me? Can you see me?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm so happy also what we are talking about, because these are exactly the things that I'm musing in, and it is consciousness, and it's the undefined consciousness, not making it a definition then, that attracts me so very much. And that takes me then actually also, there is really no past and no future. There is no linear time, because in linear time, you define them. You have one thing after the other. But if you don't define it, you don't have this linear understanding of time. So I'm just so thrilled also, because these are exactly the things that have been going on in my mind, as I mentioned, since I studied Immanuel Kant, what's, you know, the true being. So again, just thank you for including me.
Thank you.
All right. Indeed. Harvey.
Yeah, so getting back to the question that you asked a little while ago about how do we teach this to the general masses, it seems to me that the biggest issue that we have as human beings is overcoming the evolutionary process of how our senses developed and do develop and are developing. So for example, I put my hands together, it looks like my hands are together, they're not. It feels like my hands are together. They're not. There's an energy field that is creating an illusion that my hands are touching each other. Our eyes do the same thing. And you know, my perfect example is we still say in this age that the sun comes up in the east and it goes down in the west. Ain't happening. And yet we, this is what, and it's as puzzling as, you know, that there is no Santa Claus, you know. And how do we make that jump? I've been working with someone who has developed something called total embodiment, the method of meditation, and he teaches us how to use our senses in a totally different way. We don't use foveal vision. We don't hear from outside. We hear from inside. Our bodies are an ear, not just our ears. These are things that we can teach children, especially, and that will move us into the next evolutionary step, because we are evolutionary infants in many ways.
Yeah, I think I'd like to go on to some more concepts from the book. I think we're touching on many of them actually at the same time. One of the questions of how do we get this series of magical, poetic insights to the public is a very big question, a question in itself. It's a crucial question, how we do that. And as Paul Levy points out in the book, most physicists that he encounters, even quantum physicists, are not really willing to grapple with the huge implications of quantum physics. They would rather use it in a very practical way. And some of you may know from recent news that the Chinese, and both we and the Chinese, have come up with quantum computers. And quantum computers are a real problem for society because they're so powerful that they can decode all the cryptology of standard computers. So they are a threat. They are so powerful. But once again, it's the concepts behind them, the what should we call it? The consciousness shaking earthquake that has to penetrate into the public. So let me go further and read something else from Quantum Physics, a direct statement. Okay, and I think we touched on this. The universe is a seamless, undivided, and interconnected whole. An expression of this wholeness is that each part of the universe is in communication with every other part in an immediate and unmediated way. Whoa. Just think about it. Shall I read it again?
Yes, please.
The universe is a seamless, undivided, and interconnected whole. An expression of this wholeness is that each part of the universe is in communication with every other part in an immediate and unmediated way. You know, we in the spiritual work often use the word non-local. We are non-local. Quantum says this is the ultimate non-locality. Everything is connected to everything. Everything knows about everything. And everything is willing to share this information with everything that he has created. But anyway, Victoria.
Okay. Now, some of you know that I was spent 4 years with non-dual master Kenneth George Mills. Okay, so language was very important. And so as much as I love Paul Levy, I want to say that the word part, a whole does not have parts. If a whole has parts, then it can be divided. And I just love the fact that there's something called a whole that has no parts. It's not interconnected. Because interconnection is interconnection. We are interconnected, our body, you know, our physical personalities somehow, not always pleasantly, in the world very unpleasantly. In the world very unpleasantly, the interconnection of human beings. And so I think that that whole sense of a part, a whole being a sum of the parts, it's just, it's to me, it doesn't work because the whole is undivided. It cannot be added to, it cannot be taken away from. It cannot be affected by anything that, because it is whole, and it includes all of this, because whole includes everything. So there's nothing excluded. I mean, even the Holocaust, everything is included. You know, and our mind can't understand that. If we could understand that, that would mean we have a mind that could understand something beyond the mind. So the mind, I don't try to make sense of that.
Uh-huh.
That'd be a lot of work. You know, I just take it and I just, as we say, try to consider from that positioning.
All right, the position of wholeness. Craig, what do you think about this? I know you were excited about the book, just as I was. I mean, very excited about it. And here's the idea that nothing is separate from anything else. It is one undivided whole, which can appear as parts, depending on what we want from.
I mean, it's once again, I keep using the word revolutionary ideas, but that's really, it's a revolutionary perspective and what I would normally consider a perspective in my life. But sometimes when I'm meditating, I get a sense of that there is no separate, that there is not no separation, but that there is an existence which includes all aspects of my experience. And it's almost like I can touch it in a way. That's a physical way of describing it, but there's a sense of connected to all of it at one time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think that idea, which becomes something that we carry into our everyday life occasionally, can change a whole way in which we live our everyday. You know, in one of the things that we talked about in our group is that when we are together in a meeting, if we remember that we are non-local, then everything we do, every moment is significant. It counts because it's immediately in contact with the whole, and as we just heard, can actually change the whole. There was some hands here. Victoria again, and then Richard.
Just to say one of the words, because I've also been thinking, you know, there's always a new perspective. And one of the words that Paul Levy uses, aperspectival. Aperspectival. I love that. I mean, aperspectival. Like there's no perspective because there is no up and down. There is no in and out. So there's no perspective. We can't have a new perspective on a situation. I was like, I don't even know what I'm saying about that, right? Because I think that's our views. We have a perspective from the stars. So, you know, in a big thing, change your perspective. And then I said, what is this word that he's saying? And how can that be? I mean, that's what my mind is saying. But there's something that just completely radiates with that and glows with that. And even life shifts with that. I don't have to change my perspective. Isn't that wonderful news? It's so much work to change our perspective because there's something called an aperspectival view. Not even a view, and it's aperspectival. I can't say
Yeah. Yes. Richard and Eleanor.
Yeah, I think the absolutely fascinating thing for me here is that science or quantum physics is catching up with spirituality, because that concept of the universe being in contact with man has, been in a sense poo-pooed. I was reading Rudolf Steiner, and he was talking about the wise men and the fact that the wise men were basically able to divine information from the stars. And nowadays, that's a ridiculous concept. It doesn't hold water. It's, that they made it up for children or something like that. But it's true, the universe is talking to us. And as somebody else said earlier, that the whole of our body is a receptive system. And if we learned how to do it, we would be able to get that kind of information, not in the old way that they got it then, but in a new conscious way, in a quality of consciousness. And just also to, I think that, you know, I think all of us have probably had the opportunity to meet people who have been affected by and been able to live through this, being able to live a life that has been changed by these concepts. And you meet them and they are extraordinary people because their being, it isn't anything they say, it's their being gives out who they are. And they are remarkable people.
Yes. And Eleanor.
Well, I think you said it also beautifully. One thing is that always comes out to me that there are no answers, because if you have an answer, you have to become. So just I am that I am, I think is a good. I'm not God, I'm not spirit, or I'm not whatever. I am living essence here.
Yeah, I think this is one of the things that the quantum physics stresses, that answers depend on immediate questions. Questions and answers are an immediate interaction. They're a relationship from which the reality that depends on what your consciousness is and the question you're asking, the answer will appear in accordance with that. In other words, as it's Eleanor, right?
Eleanor here. Eleonore, but Eleanor.
Hey, I just saw it, yeah. There is no such thing as a fixed answer. The answer is always evolving with the question at the same,
exactly, yeah.
the same time. Bob, I think you had your hand up.
Oh, yes, thank you. That was beautiful, Eleanor. Thank you so much. You know, I think that one of the things that Paul Levy suggests, either clearly or not so definitively, is that there's no such thing as the universe. That the universe doesn't exist. The universe is a projection of consciousness. It is, so the idea for me of getting in touch with the universe, or to get in touch, is really what we're saying is to get in touch with consciousness. Because consciousness creates everything. There's, you know, it's so interesting that ultimately, I think that the ultimate conclusion is that there's no thing, nothing exists. Everything is imputed. So with that concept in mind, the only thing that is constant is consciousness.
Yes.
The only thing that we communicate with each other, you know, that question about how do we spread the news is, well, the answer is consciousness. You know, that what you were saying in your group, when you get together, you are, as a Sangha group, you are communicating with each other on many levels. There are many levels of consciousness, and that consciousness is transmitted or transformed in many different directions, so that there is a real struggle going on right now, I think, between those levels of consciousness. So we have, you know, one level of consciousness that seems to be addicted to violence and anger and rage and all of these other things. And then there's another level of consciousness that is very aware of love and spreading that good news. So, you know, I love what Paul Levy has to say, because he's basically saying, yes, quantum physics is very important, but quantum physics is just a portal into the existence of consciousness. That all it does is confirm or amplify the power of consciousness that he calls it magic, you know, but it is that incredibly powerful entity that we have and that we don't realize, that we forget how powerful consciousness is and how it can transmute and transcend unconsciousness. It's just a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful book. It is wonderful to see. Those, I think, are the ways. One of the ways that that things are going to change is putting out books like this, and then having groups like we all are familiar with, the many groups that exist that are all focused on consciousness. And those, when you multiply them, you know, I keep thinking back to when Eckhart Tolle was doing The Power of Now with that little movie star, and there were 5 million people listening, 5 million people, live broadcast, 10 weeks in a row, 5 million people getting up at all different times of what we believe time to be, you know, and blah, 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 and tuning in to consciousness was just an amazing phenomenon. And I think that, you know, this movement of awareness, awakening to consciousness is really getting amplified and stronger and stronger. So thank you.
So, yes, thank you, Bob. I want to touch on something else that's brought out.
Excuse
I'd
me,
like to move on.
Anne-Marie has been raising her hand.
I'd like to move on, but Anne-Marie, okay, if you have a short contribution.
Just really, really, really short, is that the consciousness is the universalness, and is the consciousness reminds me of the Buddhist concept of emptiness.
Yes.
And maybe the grasping of emptiness. I just wanted to say that.
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
We don't really know what consciousness is, by the way. We are consciousness. We are consciousness. What actually is consciousness? It's an interesting, fascinating question. But I want to move on to something very interesting, and that's repeated in Paul Levy's book again and again, which is the whole concept, not concept, it's more than a concept. It's an experience of dreaming. And to look at our relationship to life, to the universe, to every instant of experience as a form of a dream. Let's just see if I can find something about that. Nature, page 305. The more we recognize the dreamlike nature of our waking experience. If we interpret experiences in our lives as though we were in a dream, how would this change our experience? So let's see how we hear this. And just by way of introduction, we don't often think very much about the nature of our dreams. We may hear some things about it, but something extraordinary happens in our dreams. And that is, when we are dreaming, we are the ones that are creating the dream, completely creating the dream. And yet, think of the incredible creative power of the dreamer, because the dreamer can create the entire spectrum of apparent experience of the dream. So what does he really mean by the dreamlike nature of our experience? What is he pointing to in relation to quantum physics? Dreaming. Harvey.
So a lot of the time I have no control, or seem to have no control over dreams, but other times I do have lucid dreams, dreams in which I actually can think about what's happening and change it and ask questions and interact in that dream. I don't know how many of you also have had that experience, but it's quite profound. But I'm thinking about if consciousness or this dreamlike state is all there is, you can't identify something outside of it. You are it, you are in it, and you can't observe it then. And so consciousness is the same kind of thing, where if consciousness is all there is, how do you get outside of it to be able to measure and observe it? You can't. It's the ultimate paradox, I believe.
It's a mystery. I mean, but to talk about dreaming in the way that he's talking about it is really something worth considering. Craig.
You're muted.
Yeah, I was dreaming that I was speaking. I got my booster shot this morning, and I'm like completely out of it. And I feel like I'm dreaming right now. I feel like I'm dreaming awake, and my condition's getting worse. But if we go back to what the whole book is talking about, and what we were just talking about of how dreams are constructed. Dreams seem like dream. We call those dreams, but in relation to an undivided consciousness, which it is all encompassing, is omniscient, omnipresent. Why would that be any different than I'm dreaming that this dreamlike experience that I'm Craig, I'm a man, I'm separate, I'm 52 years old. Right now I'm sick from the booster shot. I live in this apartment. I might be moving to a new. It's like sometimes I wake up a little bit and I realize that I'm moving through this dream world that's being constructed, that I'm not even aware I'm dreaming, because this seems like reality, but in relation to what they're saying, it's no more real than what we consider our dreams to be.
Yeah.
I think that's what he's getting at.
Yeah, well, that's certainly part of what he's getting at. Yeah. Victoria.
Yeah, I think he calls it the object reality hangover.
Mhm.
It's the object reality hangover. He says that we've been intoxicated for so many years that we're now living a hangover. And, we were saying about how to bring the message, or the truth, you might call it the truth, to the public. In terms of that, we have such a hangover that it's the kind of thing somebody said, the sun doesn't rise and doesn't really set. And I always think, how long did it take to find out, for everyone to agree that the earth is not flat? Like, how long did that take? I looked it up. I couldn't find the answer. If somebody could, like, did it take 100 years?
It hasn't actually happened. There are a lot of people who don't believe that the earth.
Mhm.
There are flat earthers.
That's right.
Yeah, because I think what we're talking about is as radical as that, at least, if not more radical than the earth is not flat. And guess what? The sun, we are not the center of the universe. The earth is the center of the universe. Everything revolves around us, the earth. Now we know a million galaxies and universes. We're like nothing, no thing. We're nothing. So, that took such a long time. And, there's these great books. Alan Watts also called The Book. If you read Alan Watts, The Book, and he says this is the greatest hoax, the greatest change you could possibly think of. First of all, to think maybe that we're not a human being, that this form is object. And then to think that reality is not what we think it is. I mean, how long is it going to take? Is it possible that it could take some millenniums, some epochs, and that everybody will know that the world is round, and nobody thinks about it anymore? We go out of space and we look at it. We go beyond ourselves and we look at ourselves. So, I mean, it can happen. I don't know if it'll become extinct before then, but it's such a huge, huge shift that we're even talking about it. It's just that's magic. It's a miracle to hear everybody here on this thread. I just want to tell you, I mean, because it's just, it's a very, very radical, complete, conversation that is out there. And so, I don't know about dreams. I mean, even dreaming, but even living, who I am and what is living, and what is living on earth and what is life. Two different things. So anyway, it's incredible. All this.
Mhm.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, to be together and talking about these things is itself. Again, remember, we're non-local. We are instantaneous,
Mhm.
connected to all other human beings. We are connected to what Teilhard de Chardin called the noosphere. Other people have called other things. If we are truly connected, then this conversation counts.
Mhm.
Counts. It moves
Yes.
things forward. And there's no
Mhm.
question about it. And just to feel that changes our sense of presence.
Yes.
What we say counts. It means something. Craig.
Yeah, I just, not to go back to go backwards, but I think what was just said, Victoria just said about magic and concept. Like once we wake up, the concepts we thought were magic become scientific in a way, because they're become a reality. And because, you know, I work in technology and spent a lot of time at Silicon Valley based companies. And there's, you know, the saying that any truly revolutionary technology is indistinguishable from magic, because human beings don't know how, like when a technology comes out that we don't understand or we don't know how it works, we see it as magical.
That's right. That's right. And I think what we're saying here, what Paul Levy says again and again, is that our dreams are magical.
Mm.
Our dreams, to take in what happens in a dream, the creative power that we manifest in a dream, the transformation of thought and feeling into image, which happens instantaneously in a dream.
Mhm.
So what he's getting at is that our relationship in the quantum field to reality is really like a dream. It has the same qualities of instant creation, instant relationship, and that we don't really take in the fact that we are the source of the reality that is manifested.
Yes.
That's what he's trying to say in talking a lot about the dream, why it's so important to get the feeling of the dream, which is our relationship to reality. It's like an inner dream. I think, Richard, you had your hand up.
Yeah. My wife and I belonged to an organization once called Eckankar,
Yes.
and Eckankar was very, very big into dreams. And they had spiritual exercises that you could do to affect your ability to control your dream, to have some say in what was happening in your dream. Unfortunately, I never took it terribly seriously, but I think I'm going to hie me back home and get out the books. But because what they said was that if you could control your dreams, this gave you a much better handle on how to control your own lives and the impressions that you took in, and how to take in the impression in a different way so that you could change your life, i.e. change your opinion, change your attitude toward what you were seeing, and not to take it in the old way. And I think it's a fascinating concept, but it goes right along with what he's saying here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Eleanor.
Yeah, well, when I don't have answers there, then I always remember having read Socrates a little bit, and when people ask the Oracle of Delphi, who is the wisest man, and the answer of Delphi was, it was Socrates. When Socrates heard that, he said, "Me, but I know nothing." However, that, because he believed in the oracle, that means knowing nothing is the wisest to be. So that always calms me down. And I'm not looking for answers anymore. Just
Amen.
yeah.
Good flexibility, and good flexibility and flow. One other point that's made in the book, it's brought out. By the way, I encourage everyone to read about the double slit experiment, because the way he talks about it is simple. There are no equations in there. There's just stuff which really boggles the mind. So the description of the double slit experiment is on page 9 of the book. And I highly recommend everyone reads it because, as he says, in that experiment is all of the mystery, the magic of quantum physics. All of it is contained in this one experiment. But the other thing which is brought out in the book, which I don't know how much time this, we have, I mean, you could construct so many meetings about this book, is that everything that appears to be really has no fixed nature to it, but exists in a series of probabilities, which
Yes.
means that when we face our life, our circumstances, I'm taking it to a very practical level, every event that's confronting us really exists in a series of probabilities. The outcome is not one thing, or it has many, many probabilities, and perhaps we can choose one in a certain way, choices made in a certain way, when you choose one of the options of probabilities. And I can tell you, this is very powerful. And when you read this book and it's working on you, and you think about your life and options that are coming up, and you say, wow, I have many universes of possibilities in front of me right now. And thinking of it that way, and thinking of myself as a quantum presence, I have the right to choose an outcome of the many probabilities and to have it manifest according to the way in which I dealt with the probabilities. I mean, that's what happened to me when I finished reading this book and I started thinking about some outcomes and thinking of them this way, in a quantum way, is astonishing. And that's what he really means, what he's talking about, possibilities that we have that we don't know yet, that we have to find out. Victoria.
Yes, because it, for me, it goes also back to what you brought up, the word creativity, creativity. And again, in terms of wholeness, if we take wholeness as wholeness, and not an if, wholeness is wholeness, then you can't even breathe the breathtaking creativity of what isn't seen or imagined. I don't mean seen with the eyes, in terms of what we are. Because I always say, how come we just don't make one pencil? Like, we only need one pencil on this earth. We need one pencil. Pencil is a pencil. You can write with a pencil. And why do we have to have 2 million or 1 million pencils of different colors and going on and on? Every year there's more pencils and more erasers and then chairs. There are a billion chairs, and there are, I don't know how many. I mean, it is phenomenal. And we don't need, everything our decorating, and people think that's materialism. That's materialism? How could there be materialism? It's only materialism if we see it through the mind, but it's God if we see it through the whole.
Yes.
The creativity is just beyond comprehension, and we are that creativity, and those possibilities. There's just so many. There is no one outcome. There isn't even a perspective. So there's not anything. It is just an incredible, that's why to separate anything out, anything is ignorance or a mistake or mind perspective. Minds have perspectives, many perspectives. But when it's a perspective, or when it's all included, and I have to say, it really, just considering that really takes away there's all these questions like, what is my purpose? What is my passion? What am I doing for the world? It takes it away. That question doesn't exist because it already is happening. How can we do something for the world when we're already doing something for the world? How can we find home when we're already home? How can we be how can we think of how we can become creative, or what's our next step, or what's my destiny, or what's my what is it? It's my talent. What is my talent for the universe? We are the talent. We are the purpose. So I think that a perspective is just totally relaxing, totally restful, and totally happy. Just is.
It is really. Anne-Marie.
Yes, how can this total perspective, a perspective and wholeness, how can it be insulted?
As they say, will ye, nil ye. You are that. You are that. And that as that creative force, we are the universe, we are its creativity, and we have no choice but to create. We are constant creative entities. It's hard to take that in. There's nothing that we do that is not creative. And the questions that the great physicists, the ones that really took this in, all asked was, what's behind this? What is the essence of what the universe is telling us about creativity? What is the essence of it? Are we getting, like Anne-Marie was saying, was there a pinhole in reality that let us take a look at God as the ultimate creative process? Tremendous, tremendous. This is what they confronted, the physicists. They felt that they were in touch with something that was beyond anything as they were accumulating this data. So I think we are ready to stop. And I want to thank everyone here so much for this conversation, for this, what I would call an extraordinary conversation about extraordinary material and about being together, this combination that happened here to talk about this, which is really a contribution at some level that we don't even see. So thank you all very much. We may decide in some other way, but once again, it's been great.